How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Sean Atwood channel. I'm Ron Swanson. We're live with John Masters, currently serving U.S. police officer, and we're going to get into his story about corruption and all the kinds of shenanigans that we all know take place in law enforcement around the world. You only have to look at what the state of my country right now and the multiple tiers to the way that our officers seem to hand out sentencing, hand out punishments, and pick and choose the crimes they want to invest in. And by God damn it, isn't it always the children that are let down? And, you know, I'm looking forward to hearing John's story. And first of all, John, thank you so much for coming and joining us and being here tonight, mate. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
No problem. Now, John has got some links that are in the description, which I'm going to put up on screen as well just now. And it's sort of the center of your story, Blue Line Rogue, right?
Yeah, pretty much. This happened in the state I work in.
Well, look, before we get to that, John, let's dial it back. Let's get to know each other. You know what I'm saying? Let's go out for a drink. Let's do some dancing. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and just sort of introduce yourself to the community, if you will.
Sure. So I'm not your typical cop. Culturally, or I guess subculturally, however you want to describe that. I'm not even from the lower 48. My family's from Alaska.
Wow.
My dad is a dual citizen, Canada and the United States. My grandfather was born in Saskatchewan.
Oh, damn.
My grandmother was born in England. So like I have, you know, it's not, oh yeah, everyone in the States says, oh yeah, I'm from. No, like I actually have living family. Like I can talk to these people. My dad didn't learn to speak English until he was 11. You know, it was one of those things.
Wow.
French was his primary language until he was 11. So j'ai parlé français.
Yeah, nice.
It's one of those things where I've had a foot in both worlds because of my grandfather and my grandmother's family. So I don't really blend in to the lower 48 culture the way most people would expect down here. You know, there's always the joke I hear in Alaska, where I lived and where my parents lived. There's 340 million Americans and less than 1 million of them live up in the last frontier. Do the math.
Yeah.
We're not normal to the rest of the country. I followed my parents around where they went. They were in the Air Force. It was a foregone conclusion I was going to join the military, so I did. I spent, I was in the military close to a decade. Most of that time was active duty. I got out, I went to school. In the period of transition for me when I was switching from the reserves, from active duty to the reserves, one of my friends was murdered, and that kind of changed my perspective on things, on pushing me more and more into going into law enforcement. Before I became a cop, I had no interest in law enforcement. I didn't like cops. I thought they were morons. Had no interest in doing this. I went to school for computer systems information, computer science engineering. I was a database programmer. I worked on PHP and SQL systems. That's what I wanted to go do.
Yeah.
I was taking classes for Basel and financial regulation. I wasn't planning on going into law enforcement. It's funny, when I actually became a cop, the majority of my family was in pure shock, disbelief. They're going, we would have never thought that. I'm too much of a geek, too much of a nerd, too much of a beach bum, hippie surfer dude. I spent most of my childhood on the beaches in California or Alaska as a kid, either surfing, free diving, or scuba diving.
Listen, there's got to be a contrast between the beaches of California and the beaches of Alaska.
No,
I'm saying
there's beaches. Just the water's a wee bit cold.
I was just going to say, like, I imagine there's beaches, bro, but I imagine that the thermal dynamics of surfing in it are a very different challenge.
You just if you want to get, like, I've been free diving in Alaska waters. You just wear a dry suit. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Listen, I don't care what you say. It's Alaska. The water there is it gets extra danger points just because it's Alaskan. Okay. Like I'm just saying, I went through a period, John, of being obsessed with mountain men. Okay. And I was one of these dumbasses from another country who was like, oh, I could do that. I could live, I could go out into I could walk from civilization up into the snow, and in one season before the snow comes, build me a log cabin and not die. I'm one of those dumbasses, right? But there's a lot of people that romanticize with that, John. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right,
Uh,
until they actually see it,
yeah,
and
there's a reason.
I will be honest with you, I have been out there. Um, I
Yeah,
have
man.
been out there for periods just to kind of
Yeah.
disconnect myself. I did this where my mother's from in the Midwest and in Arizona. I would just go out into
It
the
doesn't count,
Utah
man.
wilderness and just hang
Doesn't
out
count.
there. And
Doesn't when you compare it to your Alaskan experiences, doesn't count, mate. Okay, comparing Alaska to anywhere else is like everywhere else becomes a child's ball pit at a playground compared to anything in Alaska, bro. There's a reason that Alaska is so big and there's 9 people that live in the wilderness of it. Do you know what I'm saying? Everyone else is huddled together in those little towns. Anyway, Ron has
right,
proven to you how powerful my ADHD is at side questing us, right? But if we've got time at the end, I'm going to nerd out over Alaska with you, bro. I'm telling you right now. So your journey into the police force is an interesting one. You obviously had the sad loss of your friend. Was it a mishandling of the case? Was it the way that it happened, or was it just a case of I don't want to see this happening to anyone else, or is it this was handled so badly I want to make change? What was your angle on it?
no, the case was handled incredibly well.
Okay.
So he was murdered in Georgia on base. The Army CID did their job incredibly well. They were very swift, very fast. Very simple what happened. His brother-in-law and his spouse beat him with a bat, beat him down to death.
Oh my
I
God,
was
that's
not in the state when
horrific.
this happened, but from what I have been told and what I understand, um, when he was when he was put on the ambulance, he was not dead at that point.
And
That even though I was on the other side of the country, I was working in Arizona at the time. I was a dive tender. I was working on I spent half my time on a boat and the other half on a professional team. I was a dive tender.
wow,
And when I found out, I was just sitting there going, "Wha- "What?" It made me want to put some skin in the game. Of no one should have to endure that. I mean, his family from a different part of Alaska than where my family lived. But for me, it was personal.
yeah, I would say so.
One of someone from my home state, someone from my place on active duty, didn't get to make it home. Like that to me was like, we joined the military to get opportunities we would not have gotten elsewhere. We're looking for some social mobility. We're not doing this to risk dying, you know, in middle Georgia, of all places. So it bugged me that he's bouncing between Hunter Army Airfield, Fort Stewart, Fort Gordon, and he gets killed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, and I'm just going, you know, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go be a cop where he was killed. And that's why I picked Georgia, the state of Georgia, to be a cop. Everyone's like, why didn't you be a cop in Alaska? It was never even a thought. That's no. I was gonna come um I was gonna come to Georgia because that was where
Because there's at
um,
least another 4 or 5 other cops, John. That's why. Okay,
yeah.
I'm just saying, right? I imagine there's a lot of like lone wolf police officers doing some pretty extreme investigations to what goes on in Alaska, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's definitely not like the TV shows. All the TV shows have got it completely wrong. Especially TV shows about police in Alaska. They've
okay.
got it completely wrong. It is that people think that's how it's done. No. Um, but for me, I felt an emotional tie to Alaska because he's buried here. We couldn't even get him home. Couldn't even get the body home. So for me, it was like, my friend is here. I'm here. So I packed up my entire family and moved down.
Wow. You're an incredibly interesting individual. The jobs you've done, the reasons that you up and root your life, you're very, I feel like you've got a set of principles, and that's what you follow, and that's awesome. I mean, it really, really is. And I just want to say, it sounds horrific what your friend went through. And I hope the individuals that done it are having a very, very cold time in a Alaskan concrete box.
So they're in federal prison. This
Oh yeah,
happened at Fort
this,
Stewart, Georgia.
yeah,
This
your
whole
partner.
thing was handled by Fed, and yeah, they're in federal prison. Both of them.
Brutal. I mean, it just doesn't bear thinking about. So, okay, take us into day one. You're there. You've passed whatever exams and done your training, whatever you need to do. You got your new uniform on. You're like, yes, kind of freaking, I am the law, right? What was it that started to change in you? You had this vision of why you were going into the police force. When did things start to divert from your original path in this into a world of, I can't keep my mouth shut about this anymore? How long did it take?
About 2 years, where the blue wall bubble was popped for me, and I was done. A large part of that is due to my FTO. I had an incredible FTO. Um, One of the things he emphasized to me, pushed on me at a very early during my field training program, is it you do this job correctly, no matter what. No matter what the supervisor says, no matter what the chief says, no matter, this is your certification. You went through all this training, you went through all this classwork, you did the PT, you showed up early, you stayed late, you did all of this. This is your certification, not some other cop certification. So if they tell you to do something that you know is wrong, don't do it. Suffer the consequences, but don't do it. In the end, you will be proven to be right. It could take weeks, it could take hours, it could take minutes, it could take years. But you do not compromise your integrity for any other cop. And that started with him day one when we got in the car. Those were near his exact words to me. You do not compromise your integrity for any other cop. And then one of the things he told me was this whole back the blue thing. He said, if you want to be that kind of cop, you can just go find another FTO right now, because I don't do that. I rode with him for months. And that guy taught me to do the job correctly. That there is a massive gray area in this job. This black and white nonsense is, no, that is not how we function in a civilized society.
There has to be accountability. And I think that is one of the issues as social media, as the internet's become more prevalent. The reporting of injustices and corruption and two-tiered systems seems to have spread a lot faster. And our knowledge of these things, I mean, you would have thought by now that as a society, we would have done away with having these officers stare us in the face. And, the amount of times where officers have clearly breached what they should be doing and they escape justice and all of this madness, it's mirrored over here as well, John. And I think if more police done away with the boys club mentality, where they're looking after each other and cleaning up each other's messes, things would run a lot smoother. And this officer that you worked for, he obviously indoctrinated this mindset in you. Did he ever tell you what it was that? Did he have an experience where his mind changed and he was like that? Did he witness something that really was his catalyst?
I assume so, but he would never tell me. I started to figure out His personality was very much like mine. We were very laid back individuals. We wanted to do the job. We were looking for actual bad guy. Okay, not people late to work. We weren't looking for people late to work. We were looking for legitimate bad guy. I wanted drugs, guns, people with warrants, people engaged in felonies, impaired drivers. I wanted honest to goodness actual bad guy,
Yeah.
not some dude who's late for work who's doing 15 over the speed limit. It boggled my mind when I saw police officers that would come back with a stack of tickets like that, in one day and go, yeah, man, I fight the evil you don't know exists. I'm like, shut up. What?
Is that
Speeders? That's all
is
you got? Oh no, only 4 of those are speeding. The rest of those are broken taillights. Come on. What's wrong with you? Or window tint. I couldn't believe that. It blew my mind. But for 2 years I did it. There was a quota. I went out there. I measured window tint. Window tint was illegal. Here's your ticket. I'm like, this is so stupid. There are honest to goodness bad guys out there, and they want us chasing nonsense. And I finally went to a different agency where I thought it would be better, and I found out it was actually way worse at that agency. It was actually way worse. The focus at that agency was so corrupted that the chief was able to hide it from the officers. We didn't know. Other agencies didn't know. The state didn't know. No one knew until we just accidentally stumbled across it and went, okay. How much did he steal from the evidence locker this time? And we figured out, okay, about 80 grand,
wow.
about half a brick of cocaine, and how many guns. And we're going, we need out of this. We need out of this so bad. And then we got death threats over it, and it spiraled out of control. And that's when I realized, okay, what kind of a cop did I want to be?
Mhm.
There's a point where me and my professional bearing, that's a cop out. When I hear people say, well, you need to be professional and keep your mouth shut and be professional, that's a cop out. I'm a professional because I said something. And when someone turned around and said, you saying something is wrong, okay, fine. I'll tell you what, after 3 years of enduring this police chief's mouth, I finally wrote this book and I said, I'm done. I am done. I have heard this nonsense perpetuated among law enforcement that the police officer must know everything and not tell. He must know where all of the sin is and not partake. Okay. The second part of that is true. The first part, we must know everything and not tell. I'm sorry. That's wrong. That's wrong. How does the public know what's going on? I understand in the moment. Absolutely. No. We got something going on. It's active. We're not going to tell the public. Why? It's for their safety. We'll figure this out later. But once it's cleaned up, let the public know, hey, we just got a murderer off the street. This is what we're doing. That's why there were lights, SWAT teams, guys with rifles. Please don't people panic. Or if we've got an ongoing investigation, absolutely don't talk. Why? We want to get that guy off the street. We don't want him to know we're coming. But once it's over, tell the public. This whole thing about secrecy, perpetual blue wall, gotta keep everything in the group. It's about being professional. No, to help cover for other cops, to protect the profession. I don't want to be part of that profession then, if that's the case. And I'm still actively employed in law enforcement. I go on patrol next week. I'm just I'm on a break right now. I'm on a work break. That's it. I was patrolling last week. I made a DUI arrest just last week. The guy was driving high, and I mean baked. And I'm not going to protect him. I have arrested police officers for DUI. I don't care. I flat out do not care. I don't care who you are, what you're doing. I don't. No, I don't care who you are. He was a police officer. He was headed to training. I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, my career is going to be over. I said, I don't care. I told him, this happened 2 years ago. I arrested a cop for DUI. I don't care. I flat out don't care. The same rules that apply to everyone else have to apply to us.
It's
So
true.
when
It
this
is.
situation happened, I already knew what my decision was going to be. It just took time for me to get to the point where I finally publicly said something. And I waited a good 3 years for the state to come out and say something, and they just never did it.
When you start seeing this in-house corruption, these in-house officers and higher ups, did you have the mindset of like, once this escalates, everything will be taken care of, right? It's a smaller issue. It's a department thing. Did you start seeing higher up levels within the legal system defending and sweeping things under the carpet? Did you find that corruption spread further than just local departments?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And it happened almost immediately. And that kind of broke my heart. And I haven't lost respect for the profession. I have lost respect for our system to such a point that I no longer. I'm cautious when even prosecutors tell me something. I am when a prosecutor says I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going, yeah, right. I'll believe it when I see it. Because prosecutors helped this guy, helped this police chief. They covered for him after he stole the cocaine.
It's a sizable amount as well, you know?
Yeah, a little over half a brick. It was 340 grams. It was a lot. And that's the one we know about.
Right. Yeah. Somebody just raised a good point in the side chat, Jade. There was a video of a cop who OD'd on the fence in a toilet.
I've seen that.
It's I'll look it up whilst we're talking about it, but it's an incredible.
Oh, it's a horrible video. Oh, it's horrible to see it. And his partner had to rush in there and Narcan him.
Yeah.
And I'm going, this guy had a problem, and because he's got a badge and a uniform, the normal indications that would have been picked up by other officers were completely ignored.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot. Like, there seems to be a lot of. Like, I just typed in cop ODs on Fent, and I just expected the one video to come up, but it's a few, man.
And not because they were exposed to it, because they were legitimately addicts.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's tests before you go in, blood tests or urine tests or something to make sure you're clean in some way before you join the police force. Do you find that there is this slippery slope of substance abuse for coping with what they've seen,
Yes.
what they're doing, or even coping with dealing with what you had to deal with, the corruption?
We see far more than the public sees. There was a fatal wreck just last week. A guy ran from a sheriff deputies. Now, I'm going to make this very clear. I don't like car chases. That's just me. I can't speak for other cops. I just don't like car chases. I think they're dangerous. I think they're dangerous to the public. I think they're dangerous to bad guy. I think they're dangerous to me. Okay.
Yeah.
But I just don't like car chases. But hey, in the state I'm in, you run from the police, we can legally chase you. I will tell you, and I'm not trying to give an insider secret of, oh, yeah, guys, I'm more than likely, unless I think you're impaired, I'm just going to turn the lights off. It's not worth it. This is me. This is just me. Okay. Please don't think the Georgia State Patrol is going to turn their lights off, because they're not. They're going to put you in a ditch.
I get what you're saying,
but
I love watching.
More apt than not, I have turned the lights off.
I love watching me a good America. Has to be America, man. America outrageous car chase. Like,
they're insane.
And here's the thing. I'm in my mid-40s and I'm terrified of driving, John. They're basically big bullets that are human goals inside, right?
It's when you look at a car, just a normal average run-of-the-mill police car, Ford Explorer. It's a 2,000-pound missile.
Yeah. And see, if the roads were empty like a field, no problem. I'd be a confident driver. Do you know what I'm saying? It's everybody else, John. It's everyone else. And for me, I would totally be on the side of,
I turn them off.
do you know what I'm saying?
I can't tell you how many times somebody has run for me and I just turn the lights off and let it go. I don't worry about it. I have no ego here. I on the way to work, I swallow my ego. Okay, that's it. I don't bring my ego to work, and I don't bring work back to the house. Okay, I got too much stuff to live for. I got GTA 6 is coming out soon. I got to survive for that, so we don't need to cause any undue stress to my, I don't need to, don't need to have a heart attack before GTA 6 comes out. So we
100%,
gotta make
bro.
sure, yeah, we don't bring work back to the house. Supposedly there's going to be a new Zelda coming out, so we'll hold on now. Got to survive to that.
We'll see which country screws it up for us, bro. You know what I mean? So just so everyone knows, this is the video of the footage of this officer. This is Narcan that's being distributed.
He went into the bathroom of their department to smoke evidence that had been seized.
Right? Like, it just seems like quite a serious thing to go and have a little dabble in. You know, no one just decides one day in the afternoon at work to go and have their first fentanyl in the toilets, you know?
He was addicted.
Yeah.
He had been addicted to, from what I understand, methamphetamine for a long time.
You see, that seems to be, there's a contrast to obviously cultures, substance cultures. And the UK doesn't have a prevalent meth, not the crystal meth side of things. It's here, right? But it's not fully got its dirty claws in yet, if that makes sense.
Right, and it depends where in the United States.
Right.
Where I'm at, the three biggest ones, at least for impairment, for the impaired drivers that I see, the three biggest ones are meth, heroin, and cannabis. You would have thought alcohol would have been on that. Alcohol's not on that list. My three biggest that I see are meth, heroin, and cannabis. And I'm from a state where cannabis has been legal since 1959. I mean, it's not legal here. Okay. Oh, okay. That argument aside, you can't drive with it in your system. You can't drive impaired.
Yeah, of course.
So
alcohol,
you can't
alcohol, in your system, you know what I'm saying?
Alcoholic beverages are legal. It's this is a difficult argument for me to have because I have a difference of opinion from most cops when it comes to cannabis.
Okay.
The amount of crashes I have seen that are cannabis related just baffle me.
Okay, really? Wow.
It is, and the driver who caused the wreck is so relaxed because he's so baked out of his mind. He'll hurt other people and he'll get out. He'll walk. I've seen him walking around the scene going, "What happened, man?" It's like, seriously, you're that baked? Like you couldn't just stay at home and eat a bag of crisps or something? Like, really?
Yeah. I have to say, I think you're the first person that I've ever heard use the word crisps from America.
So yeah.
I appreciate it.
I meant chips,
called.
but
no, you did not. You
crisps.
meant crisps. Okay, you meant crisps because that's their name. Okay,
that's what they are. Yeah, chips are potatoes that you put gravy on.
Sure. Okay, if you're in Yorkshire, no problem.
Well, in Canada, we put gravy on our chips.
Oh, that's right. Is it poutines?
Poutine. Yeah,
poutine.
with cheese curds and.
Yeah, man. It's too much. It's too wet for me. Like,
no,
it's too wet for. Like, I've not tried it. I will try it.
You should try it. But see, when you do the poutine, very important. Yeah. You want your chips fresh. You want them warm and fresh, so that and your gravy needs to be hot, so that when you put your cheese curds on it, you put your squeaky cheese on it, and you pour the gravy on it, everything starts to melt, but not quite, and then it's like a crisp and all that.
No, that is a sensory overload for me, man. I'd be like
really good.
I'd be like a toddler staring at food he's never seen before.
Oh no, it's really good. Wait till you have donair. Wait till you have donair poutine.
Nah, I'm okay. Well, listen. I tell you what, I'll have the dry poutine. All right, give me the condiments separately. I'll build your own poutine with a
There
Dunkin'
are
system.
people who do that. I
Yes,
have
'cause
got family that separates the gravy
yes,
from the chips and
yes.
the curds. Yeah.
I guarantee you they have sensory issues. Right. So let's circle back. Okay, we've seen the corruption, we've seen the localized corruption, whether it's addicts having to self-medicate, whether it's people that just want to steal a brick for a boy's freaking what trip to Vegas, whatever, who knows?
I don't know.
The money, the
We have theories. We can't prove any of it, but our theories are based on some preponderance of evidence. We're fairly certain it was being redistributed.
Yeah, you would imagine so. I mean, it just seems crazy. I mean,
but this was done in the name of road safety.
See, well, this is what I want to circle back to, right? The quotas you've got to make, these targets you've got to meet with what what I think we all can see is sort of the lesser petty end of crime.
No, I will tell you where I work now. There is no quota.
Okay.
I can hand out warnings like I'm the warning king. Like
Nice.
I am the queen of hearts with warnings. Here you go.
We love a warning, right? So
but again, I'm looking for a certain type of violator. I'm looking for felonies. I'm looking for wanted people. I'm looking for an impaired driver. I'm looking for a stolen gun, convicted felon with a firearm. I'm actually looking for honest to goodness bad guy, not somebody who's doing 20 over the speed limit because they're late to work.
Yeah, I'm with you. And did you notice in areas where you had these quotas, did you feel like it was a system that had been set up to facilitate a wasting of officer time?
Not at first.
Not because I feel
but as time went on.
Yeah, tell me how you felt about that, because I feel like there's a ploy here.
At first, I thought I was honestly keeping the roadways safe. I really did. I had spent 2 years in law enforcement up at this point. I know everyone's going to say you weren't a rookie anymore, but I was still a rookie. I go over to this department, and they say, look, you need to write 4 to 8 tickets every night. Okay, that's going to keep the roadway safe, right? So I do this. Every shift needs to write 4 to 8 speeding tickets because speeding is bad. Speeding kills people. Yes, speeding, people who are driving faster than the speed limit do cause injuries. Yes. But that is in conjunction with other acts. At 4 o'clock in the morning, someone who's moving down a 4-lane highway that resembles like the M5.
Yeah.
That is not, and they're sober.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They're just trying to get to their first shift. They're late. They're late for work. There's no other cars out on the roadway. So they're out on the roadway, and I stop them, and they're going 20 over. Well, who are they bothering?
No, I'm with you. I mean, I guess it's one of those things where I can completely see your point. And
I walk up there, and they got the Kubota uniform on, and they got their high vis, and they're going, man, I am late for work. I know I was speeding. Oh, dude, I am so sorry. Okay. And then I come back with a nice, wonderful little, near $1,000 ticket. That insult to injury.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Or I can make sure his license is valid. Hey, he doesn't look impaired. I don't think he's impaired. Come back and go, hey, listen, I know you're late for work. Blame this on the evil police. Go tell your boss you got pulled over. Okay, here's your warning. And now he's got a written warning that I'll hand him. I said, see, this wasn't your fault. This was mine. You were making an honest effort to get to work. If your boss makes any deal out of it, you can pull the ticket out and go, hey, man, this cop is really cool, but he gave me a warning. It was the evil police who did it. Otherwise, I'd have been here on time.
Makes sense.
I'm not trying to stuff somebody else who's trying to pay their bills and feed their family, and I mean, I'm trying to do the same thing. I got a lady who's for some reason doesn't know I'm not ugly. She still thinks I'm good looking, and I'm like, okay, and kids who don't hate me. So why am I trying to stuff this dude up who's just trying to get to work on time?
Makes sense.
Why would I waste my time with him when 15 minutes later I got a guy who's doing 20 below the speed limit, and he is 3 times the legal limit and unbelievably drunk? Isn't he the
He's the
better guy to get?
yeah.
Don't we want him off the road? Well, I can't get him off the road if I'm focused on my ticket quota. And this is the danger of quotas. This is the danger of, in the name of roadway safety, we're going to make you go out there and we're going to make you work. Why don't you let me invest my time to sit here and look for a quality stop?
You were a police officer in the USA, right? This is America we're talking about, right? Yeah,
Right.
just somebody in the side chat was saying that they thought you were a Canadian officer.
Yeah, it's the accent. Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay. No, don't apologize.
Because they hear it and they're going, this guy.
Oh, don't make excuses for them. They turned up late.
Which province does he work in? Yeah.
No, listen. They turned up late and missed the beginning. That's their fault. Don't make excuses for them. If they were here on time, they would have known this. Okay. I love you.
No, he's thinking, man, this guy's a Mountie, he's OPP or something. No. I was born in the States, been working down here. Yeah.
Those Mounties, though. I mean,
don't mess with the RCMP. I warn people when they go up there, like, hey,
like
hey man, your dad's Canadian. What's it like up there? The RCMP can put their hands on you.
Yeah, I feel like anyone who wears a chin strap, right, that looks like it's impairing your entire head, you just don't mess with them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like when the chin strap is like this, you know what I mean? Listen to me, boy. You know what I'm saying?
Pennsylvania does that too, where they got the chin strap down here, and I'm like,
why is it there? Like,
I'm going. The first time I saw that, I went, oh man,
yeah,
can't go work for Pennsylvania State Police. And someone went, why? I said, my lady feeds me too much. That would get in the way of my.
Good luck suddenly sneezing at work, man, and just like having a massive injury. I'm telling you, right? So
part of their tradition of the uniform,
right? So how long did you have to sort of tolerate this injustice that you've seen? How long were you silent until you had to speak?
I didn't notice anything at this department until this one stop occurred where stuff went sideways. And that's when this other officer and I noticed it and went, okay, something's wrong. We need to get a third party, a cop we trust, to walk us through what we're seeing, what we're doing, where this is going to go, what we need to do to protect ourselves, because it's my certification, not anybody else's. Screw the department. Forget anything that can come out of this. I just want to protect my certification. So we called the third party and said, look, we this is what we've discovered. This is what's missing. We've got these false statements here. We've got 2 different false reports written as a part of this case. It looks like we're trying to cover up something. We're not really sure what we're into here. Can you walk us through? So he listened to us. We walked through, and that's, as we're walking through that was when the police chief burst into the room at, I don't know what time of night. It was in the evening, and just made unbelievable spontaneous utterances. I mean, the stuff he admitted to blew our mind. I mean, this poor woman, we found this cocaine in her car, along with the opiates, along with the cannabis, along with everything else in the vehicle. When this police chief burst into this room and started screaming at us, the things he admitted to, the spontaneous utterances he made, I'm going, you sexually assaulted this woman?
Whoa.
You forced her to do something to get out of her charge? I'm just going, at that point, I was sold. I was sold. My partner was sold. The third party we had on the phone with us, who listened to this entire, he was sold. He's going, yeah, he stole the cocaine. Yeah, whatever is going to the crime lab is not cocaine. And then when we got the crime lab results back, it went from a 340 gram weight of a powdery white substance that had already tested positive for cocaine twice. It went from 340 grams of a powdery white substance to over 460 grams of a solid substance. It's like, yeah, there it is. He swapped it. We don't know why he swapped it.
A solid substance.
A solid substance. Best as we could sort out. We got curious. So we started running our own little experiments to see where we were at, where this agency was is just north of the Florida-Georgia line.
Okay.
So it's very humid. So we started looking at common household items that resemble powdery white substance that would turn solid.
Turn solid.
Baking powder. In humidity turns into a brick. It turns into a solid. It's like, so as best as we can theorize, he swapped it with baking powder, didn't get the weights right, and sent that to the crime lab. We have no idea what happened to the real substance. We'll never even actually know if it was really cocaine or not, even though it tested positive twice with field test kits, because what was sent to the crime lab doesn't even match what was seized.
So am I right in saying he takes the brick, he replaces the brick in the evidence locker with a fake brick? Is that right?
Yeah, it was about half a brick of cocaine.
Or was it
in the book? There are photos of the bag. It weighed a little over 340 grams, which is about half a brick of cocaine. So a brick of cocaine, a full key.
A third-ish, about a third.
Yeah,
allegedly.
Allegedly. I mean, it was a great stop. We hadn't even finished searching the car yet. But the money, there was a lot of other factors that went into this, and there's a lot of detail in the book about, even lay people who have read the book are sitting there going, yeah, this was a mule, 100%. And here's the big issue. The mules are victims too.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened in this person's life that they got forced into this position where they had to run narcotics across state lines for these organizations.
Yeah. I see.
People don't think about that.
See,
especially cops will not have that conversation about, you make a good drug bust. Yeah, I understand, but are they a dealer or are they a mule? A dealer, I have zero sympathy for. A mule, you don't know what was going on in their personal life that they got forced into this situation. A lot of these people are, I have found in post-arrest interviews, are so financially destroyed. This was their only option in their mind. And they're victimized by these organizations as an easy way to make money. And they think, all I have to do is drive this car across the country one time, maybe twice, and that's it. All my financial problems are gone away. The cops don't even look at the human element of the person they stopped. They think the person they stopped is just as evil. It's like, no, they're a victim too of this organization that preyed upon them to get them to drive this car across state lines.
And I often talk about, people think that mules and the lower end echelons of the crime pyramid, there's so much money being thrown around.
No. Oh God, no. They have no access to the money.
John, if there's a Mexican cartel and you've got children, why would they pay you anything?
They wouldn't.
They'll just tell you, get this done, or little Sally's donezo. That is a way better, that from a business model point of view, way better business model for the cartel. Less overheads.
Most of these people are not making,
of course they're not,
a lot of money to do this. They're being paid chump change in comparison to the value of the narcotic they're transporting.
We're not talking about like the dude who travels himself to somewhere and creates his own little supply line, and he's driving his own little bits back every month, whatever. It's the organized criminals. It's the organized crime that facilitates this horrific punishments that get handed out. And
it's genius. It's genius what they do.
Terror, man.
It's genius what they do. Because then when they do that to somebody, people think, well, they must have been involved somehow.
Of course.
I mean, who would do that to a person's body?
Right?
It's genius what they do. It is incredible, because then people look at it and they go, well, they had to have been involved. Somehow they must have been involved. It's like, they weren't involved. Do you know how collectively tight these little organizations are?
They're tight, but they're brutal.
Very.
Okay? But you
cannot get a cop. to think that way. You can't get it through their thick skulls of, look, the person you just stopped with 2 duffel bags full of drugs
Yeah.
is a victim themselves. I'm not saying we're not going to take them to jail. I mean, they were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But let's look at it a little differently. And this, my stops are not done the way most police officers would conduct a normal traffic stop. I invite them back to my vehicle, and they sit in my front seat with me, and we talk. We talk. No screaming over the road noises. No. They just sit in my front passenger seat, and we talk. Because there's a high probability this person may actually need some help, and we'll deal with the drugs, absolutely, or whatever they're illegally transporting. But if this person, whoever it is, can get some help, that we can provide them on the side of the road, to where I can call a prosecutor at 3:00 in the afternoon and say, hey, look, I've got this mule. They are giving me incredible, good information about who got them to do this. Can we get this person help right now on the side of the road? Oh, I'm seizing the car. I'm seizing the narcotics. I'm seizing the money. We're going to try to put a dent into whatever this organization is doing 100%. But this person's a victim too. And the cops don't think like that. That the mule is just as much of a victim.
In my head, I always imagined it would be in the technology age that we're at. It always seemed to make more sense if you pull over a guy with a big trunk full of stuff, there should be a police team that is designed to put trackers on those bricks and get ready to follow this car and be led to where it's going. And if the person who gets busted gives that option, it seems like the bigger fish are the prizes, and it
The
seems
bigger
like
fish are the prizes, but you're good luck getting law enforcement at least in the United States, to cooperate with each other. They're so ego driven.
Yeah. Listen, there's missing purses cases, right? That you got. Listen, I've spoke to a guy, Delmas Colvin, serial unaliver of multiple women in prison, and I spoke to him about my theory of a syndicate of long distance lorry drivers in America, that they'll pick up a lot lizard in Florida, drive to Texas. You might just be into torturing them. You hand it over to somebody who's into R-ing and abusing women. He sold a woman to a guy for $500 who was into horrible things. And he started taking bricks worth of narcotics in his van. And John, I swear to God, this was his words. Ron, if there's already a dead hooker in the back of your van, what difference does it make if you load it up with substances? You know what I mean? Mad. But you would, I swear to God, this is one of the most charismatic and engaging people I've ever met.
And I'm not saying there aren't evil people in the world. Of course there's evil people in the world. But you're talking about pure percentages. Maybe 3% of the population is engaged in actual honest to goodness crime. Of that 3%, probably 1% is engaged in a felony.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
I think I might have forgotten what my initial point was for telling you about these long distance truck drivers.
Oh, they're all over the country.
Yeah. Oh no. Because
there is no road that does not have these. When I hear cops say, "Oh, that's not here."
Yeah.
The first thing I think is that cop is a Neanderthal. It is absolutely on your roadways. If you don't think it is, you're an idiot.
It was your point about the police departments not communicating with each other.
They're so ego driven.
That's what pulled me on.
In their mind, police officers in the United States, what I have noticed in their mind, and this is not a broad brush, but I have met many who, if they didn't do it, must not be real.
Yeah.
Because they're God's gift to law enforcement.
Do you think narcissism, sociopaths, psychopaths, and the selection pool for the police dwindling? Do you think that the slim pickings are beginning to show in some states? Yeah.
People who would ordinarily not have become cops in the last 20 years have become police officers. People who would ordinarily not have become cops have elevated to the rank of assistant chiefs and chiefs who would ordinarily never have become cops. And in the book, I apologize to the public, and I'll do it here. I'm so sorry the 3 individuals I'm talking about in this book became police officers. But they are incredible liars, and we as police officers are only good as the information we get, and it had to get to this point for other cops to figure out, oh no, how do we fix this? We can't at this point. They've been doing it for so long.
Well,
So
see, that's
it's at that level to where these guys 30 years ago would not have become police officers, but because of what's happened in the last 30 years, they have been able to become cops who ordinarily would not have become cops. This happened in Miami during the cocaine wars. People who would ordinarily never have become police officers got to become police officers because there's a shortage in Miami-Dade.
yeah. And with this shortage, do you think that they're trying to create a system where they're trying to purposely create police forces in states where they want the police alienated by the population so that they can try and indoctor in? I'm fearing Robocop states, all right? And in order to get some sort of artificial policing, right, to start taking place, we've already got systems where police officers no longer need to write up the reports at the end of the day.
The AI.
The AI will interpret the conversations from the chest cam.
That is going to get people in trouble,
Oh,
at
hell
least
yeah.
here in the States. I am not a defense attorney, and I already know what I'm going to do. If I was a defense attorney, I would sit there and just say, "Officer, did you write this report?" I wrote it. Okay, cool. It says here that I wrote this report. So, do you want to take back your perjury, or what are we doing here?
Well, you see, all of these things are really good
Report,
ideas.
I type.
Yeah, see, here's the thing.
No
All of these
AI
things
assistance. I
they're
type
great
my
ideas,
report.
John. They're great ideas when it's like 15th generation of the software, right? I mean, could you imagine your prison sentence depends on what is the equivalent of the first generation iPhone, okay, of this coding? It's one of these things that AI and all of this technology should assist police. It should be an
AI,
additional buffer. It shouldn't
it is
be
simply a
should be
tool.
swapping out. Exactly. It should
It's
be a
just
tool.
another tool.
Correct.
It is not the end all be all, but I have seen people locked up and transported multiple states because of an AI photo hit. And then
How
they
does
got
that
to that other state and they figured out it wasn't the person that was like, I
do
mean,
you think listen,
I
it
have
seems
seen city police here in Georgia have a person transported from Atlanta to South Georgia all because of an AI mistake. And that guy had to spend a year in the county jail. And no one is being held accountable for it. They're all trying to blame the company. It's like, no, at some point along the way, when was the human being, the police officer, going to step in and go, no? It's kind of like tag readers.
yeah, but is
I
there a
can
fear?
sit there with my tag readers and they can ping all day long. If I don't reach over and hit the validate button and confirm that that tag and that car and that state or that province or whatever all matched up, but there are police officers out there that will go solely off of the little noise that their computer makes, and they'll go stop a car and then wonder why they're being sued for illegal detention. I know why. If they'd have taken the 5 seconds, but we rely so much on technology today, and these AI reports are going to get us in trouble.
Do you
And
know?
every cop out there should not be using if there's
Well,
police officers listening to this, stop using AI. If your department's using it, stop using it. You need to type your report and it should match, because when you get to court at some point you're going to get destroyed.
well, here's the thing. It seems like we've discussed the police time being whittled down with quotas. All right. Now they're interjecting with the AI reports being written and all the rest of it. It's almost like they just want numbers on paper for whatever
That's right.
reason. I don't know if it's funding or whatever.
It's stat driven.
But do you
It's
think
stat driven.
it's going to get to the point where an officer is going to pull someone over and the AI is going to be the one that's issuing the commands and telling the officer what to do, and we're just going to be a glorified button pusher, a trained button pusher. I mean, it seems like the more they strip it back, where the officers have got no free will, they're hitting quotas, they've got to do what exactly as you're saying, which seems insane to me because exactly what you said, focusing on felonies, focusing on the real dangerous individuals.
Honest to goodness criminals, right?
Right. It
Which is
seems
a
to me,
tiny sliver of society.
yeah,
No, I would say technology is creating a crutch for law enforcement.
that's a better way of putting it. Yes, thank you.
We are relying on it to such an extent that we are giving up our training and the human element is being removed out of it.
And isn't it fascinating?
I rely as a police officer. I rely on the human element. This is why I have people come to my front seat. I need the human element. I need to know who I'm talking to. I can't do that on the side of the road like a drone. I'm
Yeah,
not a drone. And even if I am dealing with the criminal element is not a drone. We're
yeah,
human beings. We have to have that interaction, that connection. Now, probably from this interview, people wouldn't believe it, but I'm actually an introvert. And I went and I got over my introvertedness to do this job so that when I go out there, I make the human connection. And not like this. I want a smooth, easy connection to where I can talk to someone and try to figure out what's going on. Cops who approach every situation, every stop as the same every time, they miss stuff every single time. And then they can't figure out why people don't like them. Well, you're just out there writing tickets.
yeah.
You're fighting the evil that people don't know exists. Stop.
Now, it's interesting because I was about to say it's interesting that these sort of crutches are being accepted in a time where there is a smaller gene pool to choose from.
Right.
Uh, but it's also interesting that when these things were not in place and there was a larger gene pool, is when the foundations for a lot of this corruption started to manifest. And
This goes back to our training.
it's interesting, man. It really is.
It goes back to our training. The last 50 years of law enforcement, our training has been so poor
Okay.
on a global scale. The majority of cops that I know, all they know is every year they have to get out, they have to pull their gun, they have to shoot the paper target, they have to fire the taser probes twice, they have to pull their baton, get back, and then they're done.
And then they're
That's
done.
all the training they got.
It seems mad.
They don't do any de-escalation training. They don't do any interview training. They don't do any interdiction training. They don't do any case law training. I have met police officers that do not understand foundational case law in the United States that affects their job. And then when I quote the case law, they look at me like I'm on drugs and they're going, I've never heard of that before. I'm like, you've been a cop 20 years and you've never heard of something like I actually just dealt with this a few weeks ago. I had a police commander. She honestly did not know Pennsylvania versus Mims. That in the United States, the police do not have to have a reason to have the driver step out of the car. If we tell you, you have to get out. She'd never heard of it before. How did she get to the position she's in? I have met other cops who did not know that passengers were seized when we stop a car in the United States. Everyone in the car, passengers, driver, everyone is seized. They had never heard of that case law. I had to explain it to them. This was a guy who had been a captain at a department for 10 years. He'd never heard of the case law. He had never heard the U.S. Supreme Court say passengers can't leave the car
So when you start
right
seeing,
from the get-go until the cop gets up there and figures out what's going on.
see when
This
you
is
start,
basic stuff.
well, this is what I'm saying. When you start seeing basic stuff like that not being understood by the people at the top, how?
Now, that same commander who didn't know Pennsylvania versus Mims, who did not know that drivers could be ordered out of the car for no reason. We didn't need a reason. It was just, no, you have to step out of the car. We don't need to articulate it on a report, nothing. You just have to get out of the car. And I can put them in my front seat if I want to. I can have them stand on the side of the road. I can have them sit on the curb. This is all normal. The same one who didn't know that drives around the neighborhood and illegally detains people. She just stops people and talks to them for 10, 15 minutes and calls that community policing. And I'm going, you just illegally detained that person. They weren't free to leave. When they tried to leave, you say, hey, hold up. Bang. You just seized them. Nobody has ever taught her she's seizing people because all she knows is every year, just like all these other cops I've met, they pull their gun, they shoot the little piece of paper, they fire the 2 taser probes, they whip out their baton, and they scream, get back, get back. And then they're done. They don't stay updated on laws. They don't stay updated on de-escalation techniques. They don't actually go out and practice this stuff. They don't have honest to goodness interactions
But do you
with
not think, though?
citizens.
Do you not think, though, John, that allowing this sort of thing to happen is just building the manifesto for ushering in more AI control, more decisions being taken away? Because look, John, look how terrible these people make decisions, right? It
Right.
seems like there's so much that is propagated for so long that is now coming to fruition. And we've stopped, we've spoken to a guy from our country in here called John Wedger. And he was part of the child safety team where he would deal with the worst of the child abusers and have to look through all the evidence and all of that stuff. And
That's a hard job.
what he witnessed was a tiered policing that favored those who preyed on children, judges that were involved in corruption and situations that would disgust you. And he was told that if he went public with it, they would unalive him. And he went public with it, and they tried to unalive him a couple of times. He's one of my co-hosts on a Sunday. And I need to ask you, did you ever witness a tiered system when it came to certain individuals and crimes around children? Was there ever cases where there was, I wonder why that guy got away with this, or the sentence was lighter when it came around crimes against children?
So I've never worked in any kind of unit that worked against those types of crimes.
Sure.
What I primarily have dealt with in my law enforcement career has been traffic interdiction, traffic enforcement. I was
Sure.
looking for impaired drivers or just pure interdiction. I'm looking for guns, narcotics. I'm looking for bad guy on the roadway. I
Okay.
also served warrants. So had a warrant, knew who bad guy was, knew what he did. You know, we're looking for felony murderers, rapists, thieves, things like that.
Sure. So yeah, different department. But
Yeah,
would you have
it's.
to assume that this is a widespread issue? And was there ever any
I wouldn't
stories?
know.
Okay, yeah,
Because I can speak in my state.
of course.
I have friends who are in police who do that type of investigation.
Okay.
What they have told me, what I have seen on some of the basic training, is it goes down to what can be proven in court.
Yeah.
A victim's statement is very much relevant, but I have had, I will give a real world example. I had a guy I arrested for aggravated battery, aggravated assault. During the assault of his girlfriend, as she tried to flee the house, and I was able to prove this with photographic evidence, as she was trying to claw her way out the door, he drug her back in and continued the beating. During the beating, he sexually assaulted her. I had to leave the room once I got her to the hospital to have a sexual assault nurse examiner come in and do the kit, because I wasn't going to be a part of that. What went to court was only what they could prove.
Yeah. Damn.
So what went to court was, I think I wrote close to a dozen warrants, a dozen separate charges for this individual. I think only 6 went to court because the prosecutor is sitting here looking at everything going, I can only prove this. The victim's statement was very much relevant, but the prosecutor knew that she could only prove, and I collected a lot of information. And the prosecutor told me, you collected a lot. Really glad you did this. This is a good case. This is what I can prove. When it came to sentencing, the victim's statement was very important. Absolutely. But what could be proven was as she's trying to flee the house, he's dragging her back in. That could be proven in court. There were neighbors who watched that happen. They came to court and said, yeah, one of the neighbors had a camera that showed her trying to claw out of the house and him dragging her back in on a Ring doorbell from across the street. That could be proven in court. Well, that's a kidnapping charge, at least in the state I live in.
Right.
So the things that could be proven in court didn't necessarily match up what he went to jail for that night. What he went to jail for that night was a slew of charges that I thought I had probable cause for. Judge sat there and said, I'm sold. I'm reading your report. I'm looking at your photos. I'm looking at your evidence. This is great. Let's go. Prosecutor looked at it and said, highly unlikely I'm going to be able to prove this in a court beyond a reasonable doubt. Oh, no, you had probable cause to make an arrest. I can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of 12 people. So what went up in front of a grand jury was half of what I wrote. That's not my fault.
Right. But that's the system, right?
I would imagine it's the same in a case dealing with a sex offender. What can they prove?
100%. Well, I mean, there's varying laws for some cases, especially with children and things like that, and it is difficult and it's frustrating. I think, especially when we look at how many women and victims of our, as we have to say on YouTube, the crimes go unreported. I think it's got a 14% report rate. 14% of it is reported in the UK, and less than 1% of a conviction. And I mean that is a sad statistic for.
That's, as far as I know, it's about the same in the United States. And the problem is the UK barely has 60 million people. The United States has 340 million. That's not a good number.
No, there's wadzies. There's wadzies. If you would just stop growing cow feed, right, and just build some more stuff and like spread yourselves out a little bit, right, it would be all right. I need to apologize. I am sitting on a wooden bench, which is currently destroying my posture. So I'm just going to turn my camera off and walk around for a couple of minutes. I've still got my headphones on. But can you take us to, I mean, I hate to refer to it as shocking highlights from your career, but are there moments that have stood out since you wrote the book? Has there been further things that you've noticed, or are people in the force just wised up to behaving themselves around you? If that makes sense.
Most guys have learned to just shut their mouths around me. Yeah, most people.
Yeah.
I still, just 2 weeks ago, caught another cop in a lie. That person is done with me. I don't believe a word they say anymore. There's absolutely no reason to lie to do this job. I mean, if you don't have it, you don't have it. I can't tell you the amount of cars that I'm sitting there going, I like that car, man. That car looks great. I don't have a reason to stop it. Okay, got to let it go.
Yeah.
But again, there's no ego. You know, these guys who bring their egos to work with them, I'm not that kind of cop. And I want to do the job. I want to do it correctly. I want to find bad guy, and I find bad guy. I find bad guy every night. I just don't find all the bad guys, and that's okay. And that is absolutely okay. Somebody will get that person later. Some of the aggression that I've seen in the name of I'm doing right by justice, so I'm going to lie. No.
Yeah. What? I mean, how often would you think? There's no other way of calling this than saying people are getting framed for. I mean, how often have you seen things like evidence being planted? Did you ever experience anything like that?
I have not experienced it. The cops I was around did not do that, but I have heard of it. I have met police officers that are willing to do that.
And
again, I have no words for that kind of a cop. he's not one of us. I mean, statistically speaking, let's just take raw statistics, right? Less than 0.5% of police officers in the United States misfit the badge, misfit the uniform. Okay, so there's roughly 900,000 cops in the United States. So less than 0.5%. Let's do the maths. That's 3 to 5,000 police officers. If you do the maths, 0.5 to 1%, we're looking at 900,000 cops. We're looking at around 3,000 to 5,000 cops. If you do the maths, that's a lot of cops. 3 to 5,000 cops out of 900,000, policing a population of 340 million. That's not good. And then one of the expressions I hate, and I know hate's a strong word, but this expression I absolutely hate, which just a few bad apples. Well, okay, finish the statement. Ruins the whole barrel.
That's true. It is true. And again,
So now I get painted with a brush because of what these individuals wearing a badge did. When I'm out there trying to do the job honestly.
Yeah. And, you know, you're definitely in a minority of police officer, it would seem, because you might not be someone who's on the force who is corrupted. You might not be someone on the force who does these things. But when it comes down to telling on your other officer and you don't, you are facilitating and you are part of that problem. And I think a lot of officers are guilty of just not speaking.
That's where the blue wall comes in. It's its own little bubble of we're just not going to talk. But some of a very small group, they will help a cop clean it up. I mean, this police chief was able to get this going all the way to the state level to where a Georgia Post investigator typed up 10 pages of pure nonsense. I mean, pure fictitious nonsense. I mean, at one point, this Post investigator had me working for the CIA, spying on a police department. I mean, it's so nonsensical. I put the 10 pages at the back of the book so people could see it and realize this Post investigator he is a Post investigator. He was a police chief at another city in Georgia. How he even became a police officer, let alone a chief, let alone when people read this book and they read the statements written by these individuals, they're going to think all cops are like illiterate, and we're not. But to read this guy's 10-page investigation that he conducted, at one point he had me working for the CIA, like I was dude, how many movies do you watch?
Right. Yeah. You shouldn't get your thesis off of Reddit for situations like this.
We got curious. My old partner and I, we shoved the entire 10 pages into ChatGPT, and because when we first read it, we sat there, we just went, man, this reads like an Agatha Christie novel mixed with a Tom Clancy and a Ray Bradbury yarn. Like, this is so insane. So I thought, let's shove it at ChatGPT. It goes, okay, we shoved it in there. We got like the synopsises back from like 14 different movies.
Right.
And we're going, so we parsed those individual. That's what he did. He was quoting movies. That's where he got this from. So he was making all this stuff up and trying to shove it into this investigations as he did all this to cover down for his buddy, who was the police chief who had stolen this cocaine. Excuse me, as best as we can figure, as best as we understand, this guy stole this cocaine. So he was going to cover down for him. He was going to help him. And they needed the death threats didn't work. The threats to my career didn't work, so they were actually going to try to destroy my career.
Yeah, well, they will. It's the common tactic. If they can't scare you off, they'll destroy you, discredit you, and make you an outcast. It's standard.
Now I'm an outcast by choice. I already didn't have cop friends before I started. Now I really don't. I don't want to hang out with. I'm not trying to sound weird, but people ask me, "Oh, you got any cop buddies?" I never hung out with these guys after work, and I still don't. Okay, I have fashion and gaming friends.
Right. But that's awesome, but that's just staying true to yourself. And do you think that at any point you could be seen as a threat, and the want to stop your traction could come back if you read between the lines of what I'm saying?
Right. I think this is more of a cultural issue in the United States than other countries, but I'm noticing it is spreading. I'm noticing because police officers have done these things, we as a profession have now lost all respect from the general population.
But here's the thing: is that not? Why would any government agency allow that to happen? Okay, why would they allow it to break down to a point if there wasn't an agenda that's yet to be brought into play? It doesn't seem to make sense to break down the police force and public faith if there isn't a plan B that we haven't seen yet.
Well, again, it goes back to the history. 30 years ago, people who ordinarily would not have become cops have become cops, and now they're in charge, and they're trying to cover up the stuff they did.
Yeah.
So now guys like me who have only been doing this 7, 8 years are now stuck with their 30-year-old mistakes.
And stigma and
we're trying to do the job honestly.
All right, I want to jump into some questions from the side chat, and if anyone is on the call-in Discord, feel free to come and join the waiting room, and I will pull you guys in if you want to come and ask some questions. But the first one, John, we've got quite a problem over here with grooming gangs that prey on children and things like this. It's quite an extensive issue. I mean, you know, you're traffic based and things like this, but as a whole, have you seen an increase in child-related or heard an increase in child-related incidents of grooming and things? Yeah,
I've seen and heard. It is becoming a nonstop issue. The latest one is Gangster Disciples. They're no longer GDs. It's about growth and development, and you know, recognizing Larry Hoover and the man's scriptures, which is all nonsense. They're grooming young men to become gangster disciples. There is a prevalence of gangster disciples where I work. It is on both sides of the racial spectrum. They're grabbing up both. It's crossing cultural lines now, where there are Hispanic gangster disciples, there are white gangster disciples, there are black gangster disciples. I'm even hearing from guys I know in Bureau of Indian Affairs where they're seeing GD tags on the reservation, and they're going, "What in the world?" It is spreading. That's one example that I'm aware of. I know one of the places I worked before, you have Bloss and Blocko Bloods. They're grooming very young. Some of these rap music videos have children in the rap music videos as young as 8 and 9. They're starting them out very young.
We've actually just had our first ever. We just hit a cultural wall of discommunication there, right? Because everything you're saying is absolutely right. But the term grooming gang in the UK refers to groups of individuals that prey on children to lure them in with love bombing and gifts and alcohol and cigarettes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay.
Do you see what
now
I'm saying?
I know what you're talking about. Okay, so
I'll tell you what, it's I would like to circle back after you've made this point, because the concept of the gangs over there grooming in new members is the same over here too. Just so you know, that exists here too.
Now I know what you mean.
Yes, of course.
Okay. That is done, from what I have heard, on an individual basis, where the individual predator is grooming his victim.
Yeah, okay.
Most sexual predators in the United States, their victims are people they know.
Yeah, 100%. And most individual lone wolf abusers, right? Majority is the white male, right? But when it comes to these grooming gangs in the UK, it's not all of them. Trust me, I'm just going with the largest percentage of the
in the US, it's about 50-50.
Okay. Okay.
In the United States, if you look at the demographics of sexual predators, they match the demographics of the United States population
Yeah,
percentage-wise. It's kind of
it's
scary. It's like if
that's
you take
probably
the
right.
sexual predators, it's like a big slice of American pie. It's like
Yeah.
that's not normal. It is a
Do you know
statistic that confounds law enforcement of why we have this cross section of sexual predators in the United States.
it's interesting as well. And again, I just go back to serial unalivers, serial killers. The most the most common serial killer in America is the black male, the black an African American male. And there's this misconception that it is mainly white dudes running around doing this. And it's fascinating because you never see them in the news, bro. You never see these. It's always white dudes with a great smile that end up
You
all over the
you
news.
could fill a library with what you don't read in the newspapers.
Right. Have you ever heard of a guy called Phil Chalmers? He's a friend and work associate of mine. He's a criminal profiler and he befriends the serial killers in prison and then gets them to tell you where they put bodies if they can get off of their death sentences to put families at ease. We work
Interesting.
a lot with him, and we've got some shows coming up with him. Oh, you fucker! Ow! He might be an
So
interesting one.
do you
Panel
know
with.
what the definition of a serial killer in the United States is?
Yeah, three
3 or
unalives
more over a
with
period of time.
a period of time. Yeah,
Right. And now there's no specification of what that period of time is.
right. It could be with each meal, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner.
So I have seen gangland. I would go get overtime when I was a young rookie. I'd go get overtime working in the courts, and so I would sit in some of these murder trials as courtroom security, and I thought they were fascinating. Like, this is great. This is great overtime, and I get to watch this, and I get to see the arguments, and this is good information for me as a young rookie. I get to see what works in court, what doesn't, what I should do. Case law being, the defense attorney is sharing case law, prosecutors countering, and I'm looking up this guy. I'm writing it out. I had a notepad in court because you couldn't have phones in court. But the judge, like, I asked the judge, "Can I have a notepad?" And she went, "Why?" I said, "I just want to take notes on the case law." She's going, "You can take all the notes you want, guy." So I'd sit there and I'd take notes. I'm still doing my job, but we're listening to the arguments, and I'd take quote case law and I'd write it down and I'd go look it up. I have seen gangland shootings where this was shooting number 4 or 5. This was this was body number 4 or 5 that they had put on this guy. And in court, the prosecutor's treating him like a serial killer because over the course of a year he'd shot 5 people. And I'm sitting here going, well, that's an interesting. So then that's when, as a young rookie, I looked up the definition of a serial killer. I'm going, yep, he fits the legal definition in the United States of a serial killer because he killed 5 people in his rival gang over the course of a period of time. I'm like, wow, this dude's going to go to prison for a really long time. And then come sentencing, I'd sit there and I'd look at my other fellow deputies and I'd say, this dude's going to get 6 years. Or sorry, 6 years, 6 life sentences. They're going, no, he's not. And then he'd get 6 life. How'd you know? A life sentence per body. He's being treated like a serial killer.
It's an interesting one, but you know what?
But they wouldn't say that publicly. They called it a gangland shooting.
But that's facilitating the business model of the prisons there, right? Do you see what I'm saying? If we don't give him the maximum sentence, we can't get maximum return from the convictions. And it's an interesting one because there is a difference between a gangland individual who shoots 5 people over time and a serial killer who does the same thing over time. But the results are the same. It's the intent and motive that's different. So it's one of those ones. You're going to end up with a law that's then open to interpretation. You know what I mean? And it's frustrating.
Have you ever heard of RICO being used against street gangs?
I've heard of RICO being used against individuals in America, such as my boss, Sean Atwood. He was facing 225 years for his charges. He got 9. I think he served 9, I think, and was out, but now is banned from the state.
RICO is meant for criminal organizations.
Correct.
So Georgia has a separate statute for street gangs.
Okay.
The feds don't. So the feds use RICO on street gangs. But my state of Georgia has a separate statute specifically for street gangs that is separate from RICO. The state of Georgia has separated the two.
And how have they separated it?
So they're separated legally in code section.
No,
RICO is for organized criminal elements. Street gangs are a completely different entity. And Georgia recognizes that and says, look, these are two different entities here. When you have individuals engaged in racketeering, honest to goodness, the definition of racketeering versus street gang crime, that these are separate. And they are codified in code section. They are separated in
now, listen.
But the feds don't have such a thing, so they charge everyone with RICO.
But listen, here's the thing: is street gangs just not tiny organized crimes? Because it seems to me that if you're in a gang, I guess it's not organized crime. I'm too dumb. That's why I'm not a lawyer and make I don't make legislation.
No, it's okay. It would depend on the street gang. Gangster Disciples, not a street gang. That's organized crime.
Okay.
Your various sets of Bloods and Crips around the country, that's street gang.
Okay.
They look awfully similar.
Yeah. Listen, I've said this 100 times. If I was a cop in America, I'm not going to lie, John, I'd spend all day robbing the drug dealers of all their money. That's all I would do. And then I'd go and do my quota. And who's really getting hurt in this situation, John? Okay. All right.
The violence levels in the United States have gotten out of control. And this is where I differ from a lot of police officers. I think we have a gun problem in the United States. And that is going to upset a lot of Americans. And I'm sorry.
You've got a mental health situation in America and a privatized healthcare that facilitates. Right. And I tell you something, John. Why, if I go into a pew store in America, I have to wait days, I've got to give over ID. But if I go to a gun show, right, I can walk in and just buy something from a dude in a freaking sports center. What?
You don't even have to do that. Anybody can sell a gun to anybody in this country.
It blows my mind. So I happen to agree, right, with the Chris Rock theory of just making bullets $5,000.
Bullet control, yeah. That's. I mean, it's a funny skit, but yeah. No, I mean, if you look at the levels of violence in the United States as they continue to increase, but both sides of the political spectrum will tell you what they need to tell you. They're always decreasing. They're always decreasing. They're not. They're increasing. Our violence levels in the United States are increasing. Reclassifying violent crime as misdemeanors does not change the fact that violent crime in the United States is increasing.
Cooking the books, John. This is cooking. This is classic accountant cooking your books. Except it's not a deli on the corner. It's the legal system.
But
right?
The United States is not addressing, in my opinion, the root of the problem, and the root of the problem is not the firearm.
Obviously, they're not. Give me one political system that goes to the actual root of any problem and solves it, bro.
A lot of people will say in the United States the root of the problem is the firearm. That's an inanimate object. Okay, let's get that out of the way. The individual and what is happening in the individual's life is the root of the problem. But we will not have an honest conversation in this country about mental health.
Of course you won't, because you're all in America.
And the fact that I'm a police officer and I just said that just probably enraged half of the United States.
Yeah, well, they can suck their mums. Okay, you've got great points to make, and if they don't agree with them, it's not your human right not to be offended. Okay, sorry. So
I mean, the United States is at such a level of it is okay to be offended at everything. Okay, let me try that. I'm offended at Rockstar stopping me from modding GTA 4.
Right.
What am I supposed to do? File a petition with my MP or with my senator?
No, you're going to do what we all do and get a server in Afabeka, Rajasthan. Okay. All right.
And go do whatever I want with GTA 4. Right.
Allegedly. Maybe. It's funny. One of the guys that's just been sent away for 8 years, I interviewed somebody who was in his Discord group of 5,000, and he is a UK-based GTA online hacked roleplay server, right? None of them had a clue. None of them had a clue of this guy's double life. Wild, wild. And he's been sentenced for our wording 2 different women, one with a crowbar. Real nice guy.
I mean, Rockstar tried to sue Rage for doing the whole Rage plugin thing, and it's like, what?
Do you know
I
what's
bought the
crazy?
game.
Do you know what's crazy, right? I live in the city that makes the game, right? Like their main office is like in
Right.
my town. It's crazy.
Well, I couldn't figure out where that lawsuit came from. I'm like, I bought the game. Can't I do what I want with it? I'm not doing it on Rockstar servers. I have a dummy machine in my living room that I just want to have
Yeah.
some fun in.
Yes, but
No,
you
not
know what
allowed.
the old saying goes, it's not you that's ruining it, John. It's all
other
the people
people.
that came before you. Okay.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
But that's where the United States culture has gotten to the point where
Correct.
now we have to be careful not to offend anybody. So, you know, nobody will talk about the root cause of firearm violence, of violence in general in the United States. Okay. Guns kill roughly 20 to 30,000 people every year in the United States. No one's going to have the conversation about impaired drivers, near double that amount. No one's going to have the conversation about mental health issues and opiate overdoses, near triple that amount. No. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about
That's
60
quite a
plus thousand
nutty
people
statistic.
dying from opiate overdoses and why law enforcement needs to be empowered to stop illegal
Yeah.
opiates coming
But
into the United States. No,
if
we cannot have that conversation.
if we cut the crap, John, there is one true pandemic in America, and it is the opioids. It is the fent. It's all of this. I heard a story, John, right, of a police officer who was involved in a bust, and they found this ball of fent, and it was like dark gray, right? And it turned out that they tried to make this stronger than original fent, and the
By
officer
mixing it with carfentanil. Yeah.
and this
Yeah, what you're
officer,
describing, yeah, I know what they did.
he literally opens the bag, okay, and I think ripping the glove or something, he ended up with a prolonged skin-on-skin contact with this thing, and he was done. He was done. I don't know if he might have recovered from it, but he was done, mate.
It's gotten so bad that we have training, at least in this state, on what to do for fentanyl and carfentanil exposures. And I have spray bottles like what you'd see in a barber shop.
Yeah.
Of witch hazel and isopropyl alcohol ready to spray on my hands in the field to wash if I come into contact, to get it off my hands quickly.
So I'm going to put something into perspective for the side chat here, right? For those of you who have recreationally used substances that look like white powders, you don't have to admit it. I'm going to show you a lethal dose of fentanyl. Okay?
It's tiny.
I'm going to show you.
Carfentanil is even tinier.
So imagine you're looking at a white powder, you're having a great time, you think to yourself, oh, this looks great. Look at a lethal dose. Look at that. Look at it. That will kill you. Oh, that. Okay? Mad. I have never in my life, I mean, opiates are terrifying anyway, right? They're a great bonus if you break a bone, right? That's when you should be allowed, or if you've got a severe toothache, okay? Brilliant. All right. Other than that, they're not on the list of, it's a destructive substance. And then now that they've made this, the fent, it's scary. It's real scary. It really is.
Right, and that's one of the root causes. When we have opiate addictions, we have mental health issues in the country, but everyone wants to focus on the end result, and I think that's where culturally the nation has made a mistake on. A lot of our violence stems from substance abuse in the United States, but we are not going to have that conversation. Nobody wants to have it. It is we're not going to talk about overprescription by doctors, pain clinics. No,
dude,
medical malpractice. Not going to have that conversation.
Dude, that's a whole.
And I have families in the family members in the medical field, and they'll tell you, yeah, doctors overprescribe. Why? We don't know why they do it.
Listen,
my own family members are complaining about it, saying look, this is substance powered violence.
It's not even that. You're talking about 17-year-old kid breaks his ankle playing high school football, gets given a bunch of pain meds that have been overdosed. All of a sudden, he is now on a script for the next 20 years, 30 years of his life. If anything, it is the Marvel comic evil genius business plan of destroying a nation's youth, is what it is.
And it's now prevalent in the Veterans Affairs. I was in the Army. When I was in the military, man, you better take a knee and drink water. Here's some ibuprofen. That's all you're getting. I get out of the military. I go to the VA with, like, hey man, I got kind of a chest cold. Oh, here's some opiates. I
Wild.
just want some cough syrup, like some high grade cough syrup, so I can go to work. I don't need to be high at work.
Right. I'm going to ping some more questions. In fact, I'm going to drag in Agent Orange because he's been waiting very patient. This is one of our regular community members and one of our regular caller-inners. Agent Orange, are you there, my G?
Yes, I am.
How are you? And just want to check, John, you can hear Agent Orange talking?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, Agent Orange, take it away, mate. What do you want to ask?
Hi, John. I just want to let you know that, you're right on the money, man, with all this information. But, I was down at in San Ysidro in the southwest border and during the late 80s throughout the 90s. And things haven't changed, apparently, from what you're saying to date. Things, they haven't changed. And so, I mean, where would you start to make that actual difference to a new generation of actual supervisors?
Change the training. The training must change.
Exactly.
Nothing in 50 years has worked. Like I was saying, all they have them do is pull the gun, put rounds on a piece of paper, fire the 2 taser prongs, take out their batons, scream, get back, get back. That's all they know. They don't know laws.
Right.
I meet cops daily who do not actually know the laws they're enforcing. They've never read them, let alone their own founding documents. And this isn't just a problem that affects my country. This is a problem that affects my father's country, where he's from. I have met police officers who have never read the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. I'm like, that's your founding document. How have you not read? Yeah, they don't know where their traditions come from. They don't know where their laws are derived. Police officers in this country don't understand that judges interpret laws, so they don't read case law. So they don't understand why things are done the way they're done. They think only certain jobs can do this in the law enforcement niche because of some odd rule, or my favorite excuse, this is how we've always done it. Right, there it is. This is how we've always done it. No training. But the true genius of this country is that only in the United States could a case like Miranda versus Arizona happen, and Miranda wins. But cops won't read that case law, so they don't know. So when I get ordered by a supervisor not to read Miranda in a custodial interview, to explicitly violate someone's rights in a custodial interview, how am I supposed to take that when the majority of law enforcement believes that is a good order? Because they don't know the rules. We're talking about supervisors, command staff, training. They're poorly trained. They've been poorly trained for so long that is the only fix at this point. There are groups, there are companies in the United States trying to change the culture and trying to train police officers, and they're vilified for it.
Right. And I have a question for the audience. When was a time you saw a police officer actually reach in for their actual hip pocket law book and look up actual factual laws right in front of the actual suspect before arresting him?
Wait. You guys carry around a law book?
I do.
Hip pocket, yes.
Dude,
yes.
Never. Like, I would love to see that. I would love to see a nerdy officer. I would even like to have a runny nose and a bit of a sniffle and be like, no, wait a second. That is paragraph 17 of the judicial system. You know
I've got one about this thick for traffic, and then I've got one about this thick for criminal traffic and family violence, and then I've got a collection in the house, and then I've got my phone. I don't carry the small one anymore because I've got it on my phone where I can pull it up, but If someone has a question, I can pull it up immediately and show them the law, and they can read it right on my phone. And I do that daily. I actually show them, this is what the law says.
Damn. Oh, nice one, Uber. I'll get to Uber. All right, Uber. You've just Uber. Uber's one of our regular call-inners, right? And he's been in the waiting room for about 8 seconds, and now he's telling me I'm in the waiting room. I can see you there, Uber. All right, mate. Just relax. Okay, we'll get you in a second. Anything else you want to throw at us, Agent Orange? That was a great set of questions, bro.
No, that's it. Thank you very much, John.
No bother, mate. All right.
Yep.
Over to the one and only, the in-house call-in show mascot, Uber. How are you?
Yo,
How you doing, bro?
I'm all right, mate. Thank you. Yourself?
Doing very well. Hit us with your points, my G.
Hello, John. Just want to touch on one of your points earlier on where you say with the pharmaceutical side, doctors pushing drugs an awful lot. We had. I was released from prison last year, and I was in a prison where we had a doctor there, German doctor. Well, say doctor, more of a National Socialist masquerading as a doctor, but anyway, he was taking everybody off their pain meds, but pushing certain other meds like antipsychotics and stuff like that. So, as you can well guess, there was an awful lot of issues within the prison because people were being taken off their antipsychotic meds or antidepressant meds and then being refused parole because they had concerns about their mental health, but they've taken them off the mental health meds. So that's one of the what are your feelings on that? I mean, is that a theory that, because I know that a lot of doctors do buy shares in pharmaceutical companies.
Have you found,
so I think that's a big motive for pushing pharmaceuticals.
Do you know much about the prison system and what goes on after the sentencing? John, have you got a comment on
Absolutely. Yeah, sorry.
So in the United States, they're required by the Constitution to provide medical assistance. That has been interpreted by the courts to mean mental health assistance as well.
Right.
HIPAA laws do not allow the legal system to find out what a doctor has prescribed.
Right. Yeah, we've got something
that
similar,
extends.
I think.
Right. That extends beyond the legal system. So when you have someone do something not ordinarily in their behavior, we have no way of knowing what may have happened. But there are some decent attempts in the United States. They're underfunded. It's really bad, but they are attempting to address mental health issues in a confinement setting. The issue with confinement in the United States, the majority of the states and provinces in the United States mix confinement of pretrial and convicted in the same area, in the same housing area. Now, I started out in a jail. When I first started out, I worked as a jailer for a year, and I had people who had not been convicted of anything in the same room sharing a bunk bed with someone who had been convicted.
Yeah, we've got the same over
They
here.
do not separate them. And that, now, where I'm from, they are separated. Where I'm from, there are no sheriffs in Alaska. There's pretrial, and pretrial is separate. When you're arrested, you go to pretrial. Nobody is convicted in pretrial. You're there on fresh, brand new charges. Once you're out of pretrial and you go to court, then you're taken to Alaska Department of Corrections. But Alaska Department of Corrections runs it all, and they separate the two.
Okay.
So it depends on the state you're in. This is one of the issues. There's no.
Hang on, Uber. You're
Sorry.
John wants to finish. On you go, John.
I was going to say that this is one of the issues in the United States. There is no centralized training. So everyone has a different theory and everyone's trying to plug it in.
Right.
So when you shove people into a confinement setting and you have an unconvicted and a convicted in the same room, you're going to have
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a higher likelihood of problems. Yeah, I'd agree there.
Anything else you want to throw at us, Uber?
I forgot what I was going to ask now.
Yeah,
No,
that's
you
all right,
crack
mate.
on now.
Listen.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, no bother,
Nice
mate.
to meet you, mate. Thanks for your time.
Yep, no worries.
So, John, let's just circle back to also as well, Valley Girl. What are John's thoughts on building Cop City? Love these conversations. I don't know what Cop City is, but John seems to know.
I do.
What, okay.
I live in the state where Cop City is happening.
Okay. Can you just explain for us, pesky foreigners, what you mean by that?
So Cop City is Atlanta Police Department's. They are building, or they have now built, a massive training facility. Now it's important to know what was featured in the media is not entirely true. It was meant for both fire, police, and medical to be able to go into an area and practice. So there are buildings there that they can burn down on as needed, so firefighters can get practice. There are tire houses. There are places where the fire department can practice on different types of fires, chemical, electrical, and they're set up to do this. It was a very expensive proposition. A lot of it was because of not the police side of the house, the fire side of the house. The mock village was meant to do two things. The first was to have fire and police come together and train for the National Incident Management, so that we know if there's something going on, like a fire. We've practiced it. We've physically shown up, and we have physically gone through and created good muscle memory on if a industrial building is on fire, what are the police supposed to do? What are the fire departments supposed to do? Do the police officers run into the building that has the big signs that say ammonium sulfate, so they die in there and become blue canaries, or educating, hey, you're not a blue canary, you're just supposed to call the police or the fire department and say, hey, I'm the first cop on scene, this is what I see. There's people who are laying on the ground, I don't want to join them, so I'm going to back off. You might want to bring this equipment. It was about educating both to work together. It expanded to that into a statewide training facility to include law enforcement. I personally didn't understand that part of it because there's already a statewide training facility in Forsyth called the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, and they have those resources. They have tire houses, they have stuff for the firefighters, they have a functioning prison inside of Gypstick where jailers can go and real world work a pod during training and learn and understand. And we have driving tracks at Gypstick. We have skid pads at Gypstick. So my own personal opinions aside, protesting is one thing, disobeying lawful commands is another. The tragic loss of life that occurred, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I've heard 12 different versions. If the city of Atlanta wants to rip down its own forest because they wanted to rip down their own forest and build a multi-million-dollar training facility for firefighters, let them go. I don't think they needed to build one for law enforcement when there's already a statewide training facility just south of them. But I do understand that the statewide training facility is running short on room. So maybe that was hey, maybe we need another facility. Okay, I understand both sides of the argument. Protesting is one thing. Physically destroying people's properties to get your point across, I kind of draw the line at that. I don't think we need another massive statewide training facility for police when we already have one. Firefighters, all day long. The more the merrier, because there's not enough training facilities for firefighters in the state. I have 2 friends that are firefighters, and they are always behind on equipment training, on actually doing live fire practices, and they don't get enough.
Okay.
So
Well, I mean,
if it would have just stayed at the fire department thing, and me personally, I don't see a reason to have a second statewide facility when we already have one.
so what do you think the intent behind that is? You think it's
I
just
don't know.
if we're doing 2 out of the 3, we may as well throw in the third? Is it just a case of somebody in an office thinking it was a good idea to slip in the police force as well?
I don't know what Atlanta City Council was thinking, or the Metro Atlanta counties, and they must have had a good reason for it. I would say I would hope that they don't continue to compound the bad training we're still getting. I would hope that they would
Okay.
train differently on educating cops on case law, educating cops on code section, instead of focusing on, like I was saying before, put the bullets on the piece of paper and whip out the baton and scream, get back, get back. I would
Yeah.
hope that
Is
it's
this
going to be a new training environment, but it's probably not. It's going to perpetuate more of what's already being put out.
Yeah, if this was a step into the space of reform of the training, this would be a positive thing. But if, like you say, it's just regurgitating what is already happening, which has already been identified as not enough, it's
Right.
it's it's peeing into the wind, metaphorically speaking.
Now, the majority of this facility is meant for firefighters. Yeah, firefighters do not get enough training as it is. They need more. They need to practice. They need to be able to, within a relatively controlled environment, need to be able to work with things like chemical, electrical, industrial, and so that
Oh,
when they face it in real life, they know what
yeah,
they're doing.
yeah, 100%. It
And
makes sense.
that's where Cop City started. But people don't know that because the narrative that was put out didn't showcase that side of it. That's how it started. It started as a fire training center. But I mean, there's a fire training center in Northeast Georgia that's huge, massive, and it's got a mock village, and it's for firefighters to go in there and practice. And they set stuff on fire in there so that they can practice.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, training is key across all of the emergency services. And listen, just before we sort of start getting to the roundup stage here, John, is there anything else that you want to tell us or educate us on with regards to the things you've seen, or what you hope moving forward can come from your book? Just hit us with your sort of your closing views, if you will. Well, not so much closing. Don't feel like you've got,
No, yeah, I understood what you meant. I think this is law enforcement in general around the world. Our biggest enemy is our own ignorance, and we translate that into arrogance. When we don't know something, we will take that out on the road,
Mm.
and it will turn into arrogance over time. And we're wrong, but we have the authority, so it doesn't matter. And ultimately, John and Jane Q. Public pay the price for our ignorance. And I don't see a large percentage of police officers trying to change that culture. There is a small. There are companies out there, and they are being vilified for doing it. They're being vilified by states. They're being vilified by the federal government for trying to change the subculture, the culture of law enforcement, and this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. How do you know that? It comes down to your training. So instead of going home at the end of your shift and watching Netflix and drinking White Claw, maybe crack open your state's code section and read that.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to. That's a hard culture to fight.
Do you
And I was
think
very fortunate. I had an FTO that pushed on Put down the Netflix, put down the White Claw, crack open your state's code section and read that, because that's how you don't violate people's rights.
Do you think the mindset of people who are made and born for this job and who live and breathe it have died out, and the contribution of that mindset has attributed to this dumbing down and this
Yes.
complacent law enforcement?
Yes. The natural police is gone. I meet other natural police people who are just natural. Their attitudes towards it is they're just naturally good at it. They're just good police. They're few and far between, and
Yeah.
we tend to get into small groups, and we find each other in small groups in small training environments, and we tend to stick together. And when we do this, again, chains of command, states, they vilify us. Hold on now. What are you doing? Why are you trying to tell us we're wrong? We're chain of command. Well, you're wrong. You just violated these people's rights. Or, hey, you're wrong. This isn't how this type of stop is conducted. The Supreme Court's made this very clear in this case law. Well, I don't care. Well, this is how we've always done it. Oh, okay. So the judges in this country that are supposed to interpret laws have to rely on the police to actually read the case law and apply it. But again, you're talking about a group of people that every year their sole focus is pull the gun, put the rounds on the piece of paper, pull the taser, put the 2 probes into the little dummy, pull their baton out, scream, get back, and then they're done.
Yeah, it's a dilution of something that people used to be incredibly proud of. Families had legacies and generations of police, and it seems to have been watered down to alienate the police from the public and cause frustrations across the board. One thing I never asked you was, obviously being a cop like yourself who wants to do the right thing, how does that affect your promotions and your career path? Are you
Oh,
is it,
I'll be retiring a slick sleeve.
Yeah.
I won't accept promotion. I don't ever want to put on stripes. Um, I don't want to move into that social club circle. I have a goal in the next year to move into advanced training in what I do now with impaired driving enforcement. And if someone said, "Hey, we're going to put stripes on you," yeah, here's my 2 weeks notice. You're not putting stripes on me.
interesting?
I'm not going to go be a supervisor.
And is that I imagine is instilled from when you joined? I imagine you want to be part of the solution, and this is the best way for you to be that.
This is the best way for me to be a part of the solution, in my opinion. I tried being a supervisor once before. It did not work out. So I'm just, no. I'm worried about me and me only. I don't have to worry about anybody else. I only have to worry about my certification as a supervisor. If someone does something dumb, I now have to figure out how to get my agency out of that person's stupidity. And I don't ever want to be in that kind of position. And
Yeah,
I know that there's cops out there that are going to say, "Oh, well, you can't make change unless you promote." I don't care. I'm just not going to do it. I'll make change another way.
I mean, it's a grand thing to think you can't make change without promotion, but we're talking about a system that is decades ahead of you in corruption, in all
And
the
ignorance.
negativities. Yeah, yeah,
The biggest
100%.
one is ignorance. They just don't know, and they just and their own ego. When they find out they're wrong, I have seen what has happened to command staff in law enforcement when they find out they're wrong. It destroys them. It deflates them. I mean, it is horrible to watch. They spiral out of control. It's like their entire world existence has just been completely destroyed. I'm like, you were just wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. Go find out how to fix it for next time. You made a
Yeah,
mistake. Cops are gonna make mistakes. It's when you perpetuate the mistake year after year after year after year, and you won't listen to anybody. And then when someone tries to correct you, "Hey, you're wrong. Here's case law to prove you're wrong." Oh, you're a know-it-all.
yeah,
Okay, I'll go find somewhere else to work. Thank you.
Yeah, incompetence shouldn't be something we strive for in a position, especially in an authoritative position like the police force.
Right.
There
And
should be
here's most cops do not understand because they've never been forced to read it. They've never been forced to read any of Robert Peel's stuff. They should. I think in the academy they should be forced to read Sir Robert Peel. They do, but they do not understand the purpose of what he was doing with the Metropolitan Police. Look, law enforcement is simply the full-time responsibility of that which is the duty of every citizen. But since they'll
right.
never read it, it's just a cute quote to them. And it sounds cute when you say it, but when you've never actually read his stuff, you've never read his book from, 100 plus years, 100 plus years ago, you don't really understand where Sir Robert Peel was coming from with trying to create the foundations that would become the modern day Met Police. And that extended into the United States. There are cops out there that do not understand, have not read, don't understand the democratic ideals and values that were alive at the time that these people wrote this document that our army swears an oath to. And I've met cops that have never actually read their own constitution, let alone their own state's constitution. So then I quote it and they look at me like I'm crazy. Why is this guy such a nerd? This is not a living document. This is a legal document. This is how you do your job. This is how you function. This is how you protect people's rights. Oh no, I find bad guy. I don't protect people's rights. No, you do both. You do both.
Yeah,
They don't see that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one when you think about people or the officers not understanding that protecting the rights is the foundation of it all.
Right.
Sure, some of that police work isn't glamorous,
It's not. But
it's
here's the thing.
essential.
I'm able to take it on so that the victim doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a serious responsibility. That's a public trust. John and Jane Q. Public entrust me to take that on. So how I treat individual human beings, regardless of how they identify, regardless of their background, regardless of what they look like, how I treat them matters. They should trust that when I pull up, they're going to be treated equitably and fairly.
It should be
And
a
that
symbol.
as long as they just follow instructions, everything will be fine, even if they end up going to jail. And I have said it many times, everyone has worth and value, and every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, even if they're in handcuffs.
Yeah. Okay. It makes sense. And I think the symbol that what the police force used to represent and its dilution in the modern world, there is a huge need to create a reform for the training, the quality, the standards across the board.
Let's start with stop treating speeders like hardened, wanted criminals.
Okay.
If they're late for work, they're late for work. I'm not saying don't stop the car. I mean, Timothy McVeigh was caught off a mechanical violation. Right? We needed that dude off the street.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as a chicken whatever, as a petty traffic stop. But once we figure out, hey, okay, it's just a broken taillight. Hey, here's your verbal warning. Please go get it fixed.
Yeah.
But the amount of felonies, murder warrants that have been caught off. The guy in Utah, Warren Jeffs, was caught off a mechanical violation by Nevada Highway Patrol.
Oh, there's been a shocking amount of major unalivers
Off of a minor,
yeah,
petty little, and we caught Warren Jeffs is going to do the rest of his life in prison. Why? Because the Nevada Highway Patrol was paying attention. That guy deserves kudos. Good job. Well, he knows that. The guy who stopped Warren Jeffs, he knows he got a child molester off the street, all in the name of religion. He got a serious predator off the street off of something petty.
super minor.
But
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that same cop hands out warnings like like nothing, because he's focused on what he's looking for. He's looking for honest to goodness bad guy.
Yeah.
That guy is focused on finding that 1%, that sliver, that less than 3% of the society that's actually engaged in criminality, and getting them removed off the street. Not people late to work.
Yeah.
But
And
you
that's
got
how,
to convince 900,000 cops of that too.
and it's no easy task, you know, especially when we're so preordained to do the easy option for most people. You know, they don't want to push against the grain. They don't want to make change.
It's
They want
easy to write a speeding ticket. It's easy. All I got to do is scan the license. It auto-populates a speeding ticket. I type maybe a sentence, and then I hit the print button. It comes right out, and I pull it off, and then I have you sign. It's easy to print a speeding ticket.
Yeah. Well,
It is easy. It's nothing.
I didn't realize my camera was off there. There's so much more we could go into, John. I feel like there's definitely going to be a need to get you back. There's a few things that I know we could delve into that go past the police side of things, and I think it's just a fascinating world where when people step up and they're so often penalized, criticized, ostracized, and outcast for it. It's a culture that needs to change, especially within law enforcement and any public service, where in the modern age, your rights are secondary to quotas and massive sentences. And it just seems backwards. And thank you for sharing it all with us, John. I really do.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, look, Dory made a great point there right at the end as well. Ted Bundy, terrible driver, caught that way, you know?
Yeah.
Traffic cops, the unsung heroes of so many cases. And I just want to say thank you so much again, John. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to everyone in the side chat. Thank you who's been watching. Please like and share, subscribe. Check out John's book and his website. The link is in the description. And we'll see you all in the next one. Once again, John, thank you so much. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Peace.